Once there was a king who ruled his kingdom with wisdom and compassion. As he approached the end of his days, everyone wondered who would be the next ruler. Would it be one of his children, an advisor, a general? To keep the contenders from fighting, the king put his instructions in an envelope, which was only to be opened upon his death. It named the person who would succeed him on the throne. When that day arrived, all eyes turned to the king's letter to see who would rule in his place. With great ceremony, the prime minister opened the letter and read the instructions. Whom had the king chosen? Not one of his children, or an advisor, or a general. The king had chosen the jester. The jester would be crowned king. The jester? For those of you who may not know, a jester is basically a professional jokester or a clown. Everyone in the kingdom thought that this must be a joke. How could a fool be a king? But such were the instructions, and so the jester was brought before the royal court. His jester costume was removed, and he was given the robes of the king, and where his jester hat once was, he was given the crown. He was seated on the royal throne. At first, the situation was awkward for everyone. But over time, he turned out to be a brilliant choice for a king. He was every bit as wise and compassionate as the king before him. He listened to everyone with care. He treated everyone with respect, and he became a superb ruler, one that everyone loved. But there was a mystery surrounding this jester king. Every so often, he would retreat to a room to which only he held the key. No one knew what he did in this room, but he would go there for hours, and then he would just return as normal to his duties. Most members of the royal court assumed that he went there to think, maybe to read, or maybe even to pray, but they accepted this mystery as part of their beloved king's life. One day, an ambassador came to visit with the king from a far-off land. He spent many hours with this king and came to appreciate the things that he saw him doing. It was rare for a king to listen as carefully as he did. It was unusual for a king to seek advice from everyone, including the common people. But when the ambassador noticed that the king would disappear into this room every so often, he couldn't let the mystery go. He had to figure out what it was. He wanted to know what was in that room that made the king so wise. So one day, when the king retreated to his room, the ambassador followed him secretly. And he knelt down and peeked into the keyhole to see what the king's secret was. In the privacy of the room, the king took off his royal robes and his crown and replaced it with his jester costume. Around and around the room, the king danced the jester's dance and sang the jester's songs, making silly faces, and he did this for hours. And then the king stood before a great mirror, and he told himself out loud, "Never forget who you are. You may look and sound like the jester, but you are only the jester pretending to be the king. Never forget who you are." Now the ambassador understood it all. He understood that the king's kindness and his great wisdom came from his humility. And now he knew the source of that humility. The king constantly reminded himself who he really was, and he would never let his ego or his power get to his head. This knowledge made the ambassador love the king even more, and he vowed to never share his secret. Over the years, the king and the ambassador became quite close. And eventually, years later, the ambassador actually confessed what he had done. "I promise on my life I will never tell anyone what I saw you do in that room. But there's one thing I've never been able to figure out. Of all the people in the kingdom that the king could have chosen to replace himself, why did he choose you? Why did he choose the jester?" And the king looked at his friend and smiled and said, "And who do you think he was before he became king?" And then it all made sense. You don't need to know all the answers to be wise, but our humility and ability to listen to others is what creates great leaders. We learn in Pirkei Avot, who is wise? One who listens to everyone and learns from all people. We in the religious school at Emanu-El are so lucky to be guided by an incredible group of wise parents who help us make the best environment for our students. Tonight, we honor the members of our Parents Association who are joining us both in person and at home. Louise Santa Cruz, Charlie Hoppenstein, Beth Pilchick, Risa Radwaner, Erin Croman, Julie Kaplan, Rachel Barretts, Alyssa Braff, Kim Schlosser, Erica Kapler-Chen, Nancy Solnick, and Ivy Abrams-Silverman. We ask for the members of our PA to please rise for Rabbi Davidson to offer you a blessing at this moment. Shabbat Shalom.
According to the collection of legends known as Song of Songs Rabbah, when Israel stood at Sinai to receive the Torah, the Holy One said, "Present to me good guarantors that you will guard my Torah, and then I shall give it to you." They said, "Our ancestors will be our guarantors." But the Holy One said, "Your ancestors are not sufficient guarantors. Bring me better guarantors, and then I shall give you the Torah." They said, "Ruler of the universe, our prophets, they will be our guarantors." God said to them, "The prophets are not sufficient, yet bring me better guarantors, and then I shall give you the Torah." And finally, the Israelites said, "Our children will be our guarantors." And the Holy One said, "They are certainly good guarantors. For their sake, I give the Torah to you." Makor Chaim Uvracha, source of life and blessing. We ask your blessing upon these leaders of our community, wise in spirit, who have committed themselves to the strength and success of our religious school. Through their dedicated efforts, they have helped us to raise up our children as guarantors of Torah and the values and teachings of our faith. May they know our appreciation for their devotion. May they be blessed with fulfillment in their service to our congregation and, O God, to you. And may they see the ideals precious to them passed through and lived by many generations of their own families to come. L'dor vador. And together we say, Amen.
We are gifts and we are blessings. We are history and song. We are hope and we are healing. We are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories. We are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. L'dor vador nagid kod lecha. L'dor vador we protect this chain. From generation to generation, L'dor vador, these lips will praise your name. Looking back on the journey that we carry in our hearts, from the shadow of the mountain to the waters that would part. We are blessed and we are holy. We are these lips will pray.